Hello, I'm Corey Gilmore, and this is Adaptive Technology Today. And when I thought about topics for this week, I had planned to do a show on why I don't believe in paper. And talking about uh, the future of the book and publishing and all those things. But Apple had other ideas. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Apple had an event on Tuesday to announce lots of new products. And we're going to start with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. And first of all, as expected, we knew they were going to be bigger. And this is a good thing for people with disabilities. Bigger is easier to see. According to reports, they have new modes in iOS 8 to make the user interface bigger, and the bigger space is going to help stretch the user interface so that it's easier for people like me to see, because as I'm sure you'll remember, I do have a vision problem, and it's tricky sometimes to see small icons and stuff like this. So bigger is better, but that is just one aspect of the iPhone 6 launch. Now, it comes in two sizes. There is a 4.7 inch. Okay. By the way, the current iPhone models are all 4 inches. 4 inches, okay? So 4.7, and it's big, but it's not supersized. Okay? Now, for what people do on their phones, and for what I end up doing on my phone, you need an even bigger size. I'll tell you why. Excuse me. I swore to myself that the size of the iPhone didn't matter, because I would never watch movies and TV shows on my iPhone. It never happened, right? Well, the truth is that I do watch movies and TV shows on my iPhone. A lot. Because that's what I have to reach. You know, I think we've talked about the fact that TVs and DVD players and Xboxes and all that stuff have remote controls. And the thing about being disabled is you can drop the remote. You drop the remote, and all of a sudden you can't turn on your TV, and you can't watch the DVD, and then you're stuck in bed at night watching nothing. And because we have disabilities, we sometimes go to bed before we would like, because that's when they can get staff to come in and help us. So we often go to bed early Um, so what I end up doing is I've purchased a lot of movies on iTunes and a lot of TV shows, and so I end up sitting there with my phone like this, watching the TV show. So what do you do about this? Because I mentioned that bigger is easier to see. I mentioned that I had a vision problem. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is the iPhone 6 Plus. Now, this is a 5.5-inch iPhone. And yes, I know that the Samsung Galaxy phones are 5.5, the Galaxy Tabs and all these things are 5.5 inches. I know you guys have had this stuff for a long time. I think what takes Apple some time sometimes is the fact that they need to convince themselves that the timing is right, and that there is a way to deal with the larger screen size, because they do want you to be able to use it with one hand. And if we have a larger phone, then we have to have a way to deal with it with one hand. And so Apple had to develop a way that you could do a gesture or a button press to move the user interface to be able to deal with it with one hand and still have the larger screen size. I also think it's a very different Apple now than it was under Steve Jobs. What do I mean by that? Steve Jobs was adamant for years that 4 inches was large enough. It fits in the hand. Your thumb can go from here to here without a problem. The only problem is I don't think he ever anticipated watching TV shows and movies on the phone very often. And we all do that. So you need a bigger phone. So one thing is that the phone that I ordered, the 6 Plus, is bigger. Now, if you are disabled, this may not be the phone for you, because the size, depending on your dexterity, the size may make it more difficult to hold. But so you'll just have to see for yourself which phone you can hold. I've been testing out some larger phones and I'm okay. But that's a very individual thing, so please don't write and say, you said this phone would be awesome for people with disabilities and I can't hold it. I know. You're going to have to go to the store and test it out for yourself. Fortunately, that's why the iPhone 6 comes in 2 sizes. The one thing I would say about that is, the unfortunate thing is that the 6 Plus has optical image stabilization. That means that because the phone is bigger, the camera lens actually moves things into focus. Which is the only thing that is not on the iPhone 6, which is the 4.7 inch one. It's digital image stabilization, not optical. Optical means there's a physical change in the lens that happens to stabilize the photos. So like when I'm riding down the street in my chair and taking video, you won't see the camera jerk around so much. And that's great. And that's one of the reasons I ordered it. Because bigger is easier to tap, and you know, I made sure I could hold it okay before I ordered it. You have to make sure you do that. That's very important. But the big news about both the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus is Apple Pay. Now what in God's name is Apple Pay? I know, I hear you saying this. So, here's the scenario I have to deal with right now. I go to the grocery store. My girlfriend and I go to the grocery store, and we split the grocery bill. And they'll take her checkbook out and they'll write it. They have to write a check for her, and they have to do this physically, so they know what's in her account, and they write the check and they stamp her stamp on it. And then I come to my part. In my part, I always use a debit card. So they get out my wallet, get out my debit card. They have to show they have to get the card in just the right place. They have to swipe it, and then inevitably for us, for people like me, what happens is then they say in the middle of the checkout aisle, "Oh, tell me your PIN number so I can enter your PIN number." Yeah, that's secure, but that's the way we've been doing it for years and years. That's the way America does things. Now, if you go to Canada, our cousins to the north, they have a wonderful system that uses something called NFC. Now, what the heck is NFC? NFC stands for Near Field Communications. So how does that work, and what can it do to solve this problem at the grocery store? So, if you have an Apple account, we'll just use Apple. Other manufacturers have this too. Google has Google Wallet. So if you have an Apple account, they already have your credit card on file, and you can go to a terminal, take the phone, and just tap it against the terminal. There's a little confirmation bubble that comes up and says, "You've just done this. Do you want to pay for this item?" You say yes, and you paid for your groceries, or for whatever you wanted to buy. Now, there's been a lot of security concerns lately. Target got hacked a year ago. Home Depot just got hacked. A lot of people, especially, people not my age. I don't want to say older people, because a lot of people have this concern regardless of age. But a lot of people who are not as tech savvy will say, I don't want to buy anything online because of security concerns. Okay, except there's one problem with that, which is whenever you go to a store and swipe your card, let's say you swipe your credit card, that doesn't go by courier over to the bag. That goes over a wire, usually a cable wire, high-speed internet wire, to the internet, to the bank. So even if you don't want to purchase things online, your card information's online. Not only that, when you have to go to a cashier and you get out your card, and you have to show them the card most of the time, so they get to see your numbers on the front. They get to see, and they'll generally ask for ID, so you have to get out your ID. So now they know who you are. They've seen your card numbers. So if they really wanted to, they could put, if they were really savvy and really paid attention, they could remember your card number and put purchases on your card. So NFC means that you have this stuff stored securely in the phone. And what's stored securely isn't your card number. The way that this works is only the bank has your card number. Apple or Google or whoever issues a little electronic token. It's just a token that says that you are an Apple customer. So they don't even keep your credit card number really on file. The bank does that, and then they just have a way to verify that you're an Apple customer, and that's all they know. They don't know your card number. They don't share your PIN number. They don't share any of that stuff. Plus, as a person with a disability, it means we can be independent. It means, oh, that's okay. You go get the car ready. I'll pay for the groceries. Be done. And one of the things we always get, we are always struggling to deal with is the fact that we have to have goals every day to strive for independence, which sounds awesome, right? What a great idea! You have a goal every day, and you work toward your independence. The only problem is if the agencies you work with don't feel like you're meeting that goal, they get after you and say, you need to do more, right? So this is one thing we can say, well, now we can pay for groceries independently. And the great thing about Apple, too, is it's not just you bump your phone on something and you're paid for something, anything, you know. You have to put your fingerprint. You have to put your finger down on the fingerprint reader to verify that you meant to do that. So there's double security because nobody can copy your fingerprint unless they do some very sophisticated, take a mold of your hand, and nobody's going to do that. Plus, the fingerprint reader requires that there be live skin, that there be warmth and things to make it work. So this makes me feel very secure about this kind of things, because think about the system I'm using now to pay for things. They get out my card, they know my card number, they know my PIN number, and I just have to trust that they won't be buying all kinds of things. Now, and that's never happened, and people are really good about it because that's the way it is. But I'm really looking forward to this, because this just removes that whole worry. That whole thing just goes right out the window, because it's between me and the bank, basically. And if I ever lose my phone, well, I can wipe my phone remotely. But one thing I don't have to worry about is that people are going to be paying for things using my card because they don't have my fingerprint. See, this is the brilliance of that system, is that they don't have my fingerprint. And with the breaches that we talked about, that have been talked about lately with iCloud and things, Apple is pushing two-factor authentication, which means something you know and something you have. And the NFC takes care of both of those things, because the card number is something the bank knows, okay? And you have your fingerprint. You are the only one to have that fingerprint. And nobody else, statistically, it's possible for somebody else to have something similar, but it's not very likely. It's some astronomical number, like, I can't even remember, but when I heard it, I was like, we don't have to worry, And so that's something I'm excited about, is being able to pay for things, with my phone. Also, my phone itself will be more secure, because one of the things you should do, if you haven't, is set up a passcode on your phone. That is, when your screen comes up, you should have to enter a PIN number to get into your phone, so that if you drop your phone, people don't know your PIN number, and it's harder to steal your stuff. Unfortunately, as a person with a disability, it's really hard to enter PIN numbers. You gotta sit there like this and hope you hit the right key. Well, ever since the iPhone 5S, they've had that fingerprint reader in there, and you can just train it for several fingers. You don't have to use the same finger. You have to say I want to train it to use my index finger and my thumb. Because depending on how I hold the phone, I can do that. So I take my index finger, I put it down, it unlocks my phone because it knows that it's me. These things make life easier. This is why I'll be upgrading to the new phone. If if there hadn't been these kind of upgrades and this new kind of technology that brings independence, I don't think I'd be upgrading. My phone works. It's good. I don't really have any, pressing issues, except this is going to bring a new level of independence. And that is massive. Which brings me to Apple's next announcement. And I want to give credit to Tim Cook for doing something that hasn't been done in years. For one thing, this is clearly his first product announcement. Everything that he's been CEO of Apple for 3 years now. But everything that Apple's announced up until this point has been stuff that Steve Jobs worked on. Okay? And they've all been great products, don't get me wrong. But the relief and the ability for Tim to stand up there in the keynote and say, these are the products we are launching. They were clearly products he had approved himself. So he's not standing in Steve's shadow. He's issuing products in the same way, in the spirit of Steve, because he worked with Steve for years and years. But so he knows what the spirit of Apple is. But he finally was able to say, these are the products we are launching because I'm CEO and I say so. And the product they announced that was clearly his baby was the Apple Watch. Now you saw me hesitate there because those of us in the real world will have been and will always call it the iWatch. So please, Apple, before this comes out next, this coming year, see about fixing your naming convention. It's an iWatch. It's okay. And I'm sure you can pay to get the trademark. You have plenty of money. He's just sitting on money there. You paid Bono to show up on the stage at the event. And, he doesn't just fly in for anybody. U2 was there. So clearly we can afford iWatch. Okay? So let's get the legal department working on that one. And until you do, we'll all just call it the iWatch to encourage you to make the right decision. Okay? So what about the iWatch? Why would I? What's the user case for the iWatch? Because there are some challenges with these wearables. They require the iWatch, first of all, if you haven't seen the keynote, the iWatch comes in several sizes. It comes in any kind of band that you want. You can get, leather. You can get different kinds of leather. You can get a sports strap. You can get a sports watch. It comes in several configurations. So basically, there's all kinds of options. And if you want, there is a watch in 24 karat gold if you're rich and you have nothing better to do with your money. And that's awesome. Apple really thought about it as a piece of jewelry. They really worked on the user interface and the design. But these watches require that you have an iPhone 5, 5S, 5C, or one of the 6s, either the 6 or the 6 Plus. So, if you have to have an iPhone, why would you want the watch? Why would I need the watch? Well, here's the thing. Right now, I carry my iPhone everywhere. Okay? I carry my iPhone everywhere. Why? Because I have to have a way to talk to something and get quick information. Okay. Recipes. I have to be able to read my email. I have to do all these things. And yes, the watch still requires that you own an iPhone and that it be somewhere nearby. But to be honest with you, one of the things I've been doing lately is making calls on my iPad. If my iPhone is in the other room and I need to make a call, the iPad is an awesome speakerphone. Okay, because it's right. I may have it right with me. When I go to do art at the art studio, I have to have my phone in my backpack. I can't have it out where people can see it. And yet sometimes I need to go online and look up artistic references. We have to draw inspiration from places, and a lot of times the thing is let me explain something. When I use my phone, I do not use my phone, okay? What I use is Siri. I use Siri to make phone calls, I use Siri to send texts, I use Siri to do everything, including look up recipes, read my email, respond to email, anything you can think of that you'd want to do, I do with Siri. So I barely ever see the user interface of my phone. I see Siri. And if I'm in a place where I can't have my iPhone out, I could just look at my watch, tap the crown on my watch, which is the little button that, if you're familiar with watches, there's always a little thing that you wind up for the watch. Well, there's a digital equivalent for the iWatch. And yes, Apple, I said iWatch. Okay. iWatch. So there's a button on the top that you push, and if you push it down instead of rotating it, you get Siri, and you can say, Siri, read my email, okay? And it can read your email to you, and then it could ask you, do you want to respond? And you could say yes, and dictate a response, because it's not necessary all the time to see what you're working on. If I depended on my eyes all the time to do things, I would be in big trouble, okay? And I hear my cousin out there laughing at me because I know what he's thinking. So go for it, But those who know me know what I'm talking about. Okay, so what I need is a small device with a small gateway to Siri that I can just tap the button and say, Siri, I need this. And with HomeKit, you're going to be able to do things like, now remember, HomeKit is Apple's new thing for new protocol and service for home automation. So with HomeKit, you're going to be able to take your watch and wave it in front of the door and unlock the door. Or say, Siri, turn on my light. Or anything. So really what I'm looking for in an iWatch is just a good display, like a good clock display, good digital clock, and they have all kinds of those. You can pick whatever one you like. They don't limit you to one. You can change it anytime you like because it's all digital. And a gateway to Siri. Okay, so Siri is, right now I have to say, oh, I need something. I have to get my iPad, or I have to go in my room and get my phone. You know what? It'd be really nice if all that stuff is just on me. And yes, I still need to have an iPhone and an iPad. But maybe they don't have to be with me just because I need things. They don't have to be they can be in the other room charging, and I can talk to my watch. And I can use my watch to control my Apple TV. These are things that make people like me, people with disabilities, much more independent. And these things matter. Okay? Any user interface that brings you independence is what you need. And yes, I know that it's a watch, so you're not going to be able to look at, it's a small screen. It's like an inch and a half for the big one, okay? Or a little over an inch and a half for the big size one. But I don't care, because that's not what I care about. I care about tapping that button and talking to Siri, because that's how I use all my devices anyway. I don't use the user interfaces that are presented. I use something I can talk to. My rule is, if I can't touch it or talk to it, it's really no help for me. And the iWatch is this perfect thing. It's small, it can be on my wrist at all times, and I can talk to it. And that's going to bring all kinds of independence, because I will have it right with me. I won't have to ask people to go get it. And thus take away my independence. And by the way, you will be able to make mobile NFC payments on the watch, because the way they do that is, in the morning, you put on your watch, it says, I'm in contact with skin, okay? With human skin. They give you a PIN number. You put in the PIN number, and for the rest of the day, until you take off your watch, it's validated for payment. So you can just go up to the NFC reader and go and pay for groceries. Awesome, because the watch is something I can always have with me on my wrist. And yeah, like I said, it requires the phone, and that is a problem. It requires that I own an iPhone. But I don't know. that doesn't mean I have to have it right with me. I can have it in another room somewhere, or charging on a charger upstairs somewhere. As long as it's in the house, I can get phone calls on my wrist. I can talk to Siri. I can, therefore control my lights and my heating, because Apple is developing stuff for home automation. This is why we care about this little tiny watch, And by the way, if you don't like Apple, that's okay. Android also has watches that you can buy, but I hope you can start thinking about, gee, why would I want to watch? Why would I want to pay, $300 or whatever it is for a watch when it requires that I have a phone or an iPad or whatever? The reason is you don't always have those things right with you. And so this is just something I can have with me, and that will bring me a way to communicate with Siri with one button. 'Cause that's all I really care about. I know there's going to be people that, look, I can look at pictures on my watch. Really? The watch is this big? Really? You don't look at pictures? I don't think so. Yeah, so it's not the user interface, but like I said, when I'm using my phone, I never see the user interface on my phone. What I do is push the button, push the home button, and Siri comes up and I say, call so-and-so. Call my mom. Call the drugstore to refill my medication. I hardly ever see the icons on my home screen, because that's not what I care about. I care that in my phone is a digital assistant that I can talk to get things done. So I don't have to ask somebody else to say, oh please, can you do this? And many people do, but the thing is the more we don't have to depend on people, the more we don't have to deal with people. Because some people are very willing and some people are not, and that's just the way it is. And the more you don't have that you can do, the more you have to depend on people that may be willing to do it and maybe not. You don't know. And also everyone's different. So if I just have a little my family always says, if I just had a little robot who was a little manservant robot, I'd be okay, and Siri and Google Now and things like this really begin that. They begin that process of, hey, machine, I need, something, can you get it for me, like a recipe, or can you order food, or can you turn on the TV? Anything that we can do to bring ourselves independence is good. And so, yes, the cost is going to be a problem. The watch you want will probably be about $400. Okay? Because it starts at 3 something, and to be honest, that's going to be the small one with just the real cheap band on it. So the watch that you want is probably going to be about $400 to $450, and I know it's a lot. But when you think about something you can always have with you, okay, And to get things done, it's not a lot to pay for independence. These are just some thoughts, and you know, we'll be talking more as stuff comes out. I will be hopefully reviewing these things, and next week we will talk about why I don't believe in paper, except for artistic endeavors. But for now, I'd like to thank the Twit team for their inspiration and say good night. We'll report wherever you are.